Lirea had always believed her life would be small and quiet, just like her people. The Tylari were a tiny, delicate race who lived carefully inside bright glass cities. They avoided danger, avoided storms, avoided even loud sounds. Lirea worked as a communication scientist, spending her days reading signals from space and sending replies to peaceful neighbors. She never imagined anything could shake her peaceful world. She especially never imagined a human would change her future. Her day began with soft lights and quiet air, everything calm. But something felt wrong the moment she reached her lab. A message pulsed on her screen, sharp, cold, and nothing like the friendly signals she usually received. The sound made her small heart tighten. She tried to decode it, but the message carried only one meaning. Something dangerous was coming. Her supervisor asked her to stay longer and study the signal. Lirea felt a nervous heat inside her. Even though the Tylari avoided conflict, she knew this signal was a warning. She told herself to stay calm, to trust her work, but her hands trembled. She felt the danger growing like a shadow that could not be seen but could be felt. Hours later, the sky outside changed. Bright, unknown lights entered their atmosphere. Lirea ran to the observation window and froze. Giant ships approached the city, but they did not belong to the Tylari. They were human ships. Lirea had never seen humans in person before, only in old records. Humans were tall, strong, and loud. To her tiny people, they looked like giants. Lirea felt fear, but also a strange curiosity. Why were humans here? Were they enemies? Or had they come to help? The city leaders quickly announced that the humans came as allies. They had detected the same warning signals in deep space and came to assist the Tylari before something worse arrived. Lirea did not know whether to believe it. Humans had a long history of war, while her people barely understood violence. She stayed near the back of the crowd when the human team entered the hall. They towered over everyone, their boots shaking the floor with every step. But one human moved differently. He walked calmly, scanning the area with careful eyes. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't act like a giant. His name was Evan Carter. Evan noticed Lirea almost immediately because she was so small she almost blended into the wall. When their eyes met, Lirea froze. She expected him to treat her like a fragile creature. Instead, he bent down, lowering himself to her height, and spoke softly. His voice surprised her, not harsh, not aggressive, warm, gentle. Lirea felt her fear loosen just a little. She introduced herself in a shaky voice. Evan smiled, told her she didn't need to be afraid, and asked her to help him understand the alien signals she studied. Lirea didn't know why she trusted him, but she nodded. Hours passed as they worked together. Lirea explained the patterns, the strange pulses, and the growing danger behind them. Evan listened closely, more patient than she expected a human soldier to be. He asked her about her people, their technology, their culture. Lirea found herself talking more than she normally did. She even laughed once. It felt strange but good. But just as she started to relax, the alarms began to scream. The ground shook violently. Lirea stumbled as lights flickered and the city shields activated. A massive explosion echoed through the air. Lirea looked out the window and felt her blood turn cold. The real enemy had arrived. Dark, sharp ships tore through the sky. The Kraith, a brutal species known for destroying smaller civilizations, had come. Lirea had only heard stories about them, but seeing them with her own eyes filled her with terror. They were merciless, and they were already firing on the city. Glass walls shattered. Buildings shook. Lirea couldn't think, couldn't breathe. She tried to run for the exit, but the floor cracked beneath her. A heavy beam fell from the ceiling, landing dangerously close. Lirea tripped, her leg pinned under a broken panel. She cried out, unable to lift it. Panic filled her as smoke rose around her and the ground rumbled again, She thought she would die there. Then a giant shadow moved through the smoke. Evan rushed toward her, covering his head from falling debris. He lifted the rubble off her with one arm and grabbed her gently but firmly. Lirea gasped as he picked her up, shielding her with his own body. Fire burst behind them as Evan ran through the collapsing hall. Lirea felt his heartbeat against her tiny frame. She had never been this close to a human. She had never trusted anyone this much. Outside, chaos filled the city. The sky burned orange as ships clashed above. Lirea could barely keep her eyes open from the smoke and fear. Evan kept his arm around her, guiding her through the falling buildings. Every time something exploded, he turned his body so she wouldn't get hurt. Lirea felt tears building in her eyes, but she didn't know if it was from fear or from the strange safety she felt in his arms. They reached the outer fields, far from the center of attack. Evan set her down gently, checking her injuries. Lirea's leg hurt badly, and she trembled from shock. Evan wrapped her in a thermal blanket and kneeled beside her, his voice steady and comforting. She watched his face in the soft firelight. She noticed how calm he stayed despite the attack, how focused he was on keeping her safe. Lirea had always believed humans were wild and dangerous. But this human, he was different. She felt safe with him in a way she couldn't explain. As night settled, distant explosions echoed in the sky, but they were far away now. Evan lit a small fire to keep her warm. Lirea sat close, trying to stop her hands from shaking. She looked at him again, his rough hands, his tired eyes, his steady presence. She felt her fear slowly melt into something warmer. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if her world would survive the attack. But she knew one thing with complete certainty. She trusted the human sitting beside her more than anyone she had ever known. And she had no idea that this one night, this one human, would change her future forever. The night was cold, but Lirea felt warmth from the small fire Evan built. Her legs still hurt from the fall, but the pain wasn't the thing that troubled her the most. It was the silence. The city behind them had stopped shaking, but the darkness carried an uneasy stillness, the kind that came before something worse. Lirea hugged the blanket closer. Evan sat only a few steps away, keeping watch, eyes scanning the shadows with calm focus. She didn't understand him. Humans were supposed to be loud, aggressive, unpredictable. But he moved like someone who had spent his life protecting others. Every time she shivered, he shifted the fire closer. Every time she tried to stand and winced from pain, he helped without a single complaint. Lirea watched him quietly, her heart beating softly. Something inside her felt different, like the old fear was slowly changing shape. When the wind grew colder, Evan placed another jacket around her shoulders. Lirea looked at him and whispered that he didn't need to do all this. Evan shook his head and told her that leaving her alone was never an option. His words were simple, gentle, and they rested in her chest like a warm stone. Hours passed. The fire crackled, the sky stayed dark, and Lirea's heartbeat finally settled. She asked Evan if he thought the city survived. He didn't lie to her. He said many lives were lost, but he believed some Talari were still fighting. Lirea felt tears collect in her eyes, but Evan's steady presence kept them from falling. When she tried to sleep, nightmares of falling buildings and burning skies returned. She woke up gasping. Evan leaned closer and asked if she was all right. Lirea nodded quickly, embarrassed, but he didn't pull away. He told her that fear was normal, and that even he was scared sometimes. Hearing that from someone so strong made Lirea's chest ache in a strange way. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel safe again. That morning arrived slowly. A thin, pale light spread across the destroyed land. Lirea felt dizzy when she tried to stand, so Evan carried her on his back. At first she protested, but he only smiled and told her to hold on. She wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling small and fragile. His warmth spread through her body. She could hear his steady breathing as he walked through the quiet wasteland. They traveled carefully, avoiding broken roads and fallen debris. Lirea guided him using her knowledge of the terrain. Evan listened attentively, trusting her completely. She didn't understand why, but it made her feel important in a way she never had. By afternoon, they reached a forest area untouched by the attack. The leaves glowed faintly under the sunlight, and alien birds sang weak, trembling notes. Evan set Lirea down near a large tree and checked her leg again. The swelling had grown worse. She told him he should go find survivors and leave her there. Evan looked at her with surprise, then with a firm seriousness she had never seen before. He told her that he wasn't going anywhere. Without her, Lirea felt her face warm. She lowered her head, unable to meet his eyes. Her people were not used to this kind of devotion. Most Talari were calm, distant, emotionally steady. Evan was the opposite: intense, loyal, stubborn. And somehow she liked that. They built a small shelter with broken branches and metal scraps Evan found nearby. He set traps for food, cleaned her wound with careful hands, and made sure she drank enough water. Lirea watched him closely. Every action he took was gentle but strong, protective but respectful. She felt her heart reacting to him in ways she had never felt before. As the sun began to sink, Lirea told Evan about her people's curse. For generations, the Talari had been unable to have children. Something in their DNA had broken long ago, leaving them with no future. She said she accepted this long before, believing she would live her life alone. Evan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he placed a reassuring hand over hers. He told her that even if her world had lost hope, she hadn't lost value. Lirea felt something in her chest tighten painfully, but in a good way. The night deepened again. The shelter grew warm from the small heater Evan fixed. Lirea felt weak but safe. Evan sat closer than before, and she didn't move away. Outside, the forest hummed softly, distant and peaceful, almost pretending the war didn't exist. When Lirea's breathing turned uneven again, Evan reached out and brushed her hair gently to calm her. The simple touch made her breath hitch. No one had ever touched her like that. No one ever dared to. Talari were too fragile. But Evan touched her with perfect balance, soft enough not to hurt her, firm enough to show intent. Lirea looked up at him. He looked back, and there was something in his eyes she didn't know how to describe. Not fear, not pity. Something deeper. Something that made her heart beat faster and her hands tremble. She whispered that she didn't want to be alone. Evan's answer was quiet, but full of meaning. He said she wasn't alone. Not anymore. And in that small, fragile shelter, surrounded by the distant echoes of a dying world, their closeness grew into something neither of them expected. Lirea felt warmth spreading through her chest, down her arms, into her trembling hands. A connection formed, gentle, emotional, powerful. She didn't fully understand it, but she didn't want it to stop. The night was long, filled with soft words, shared comfort, and a closeness that tied them together in ways they had never imagined. Lirea felt a quiet spark inside her, something she had never felt in her life. It was like her body had awakened from a long, silent sleep. When the first morning light touched her face, Lirea woke feeling different. Her body felt warm, her chest full, her emotions sharper. She looked at Evan, still sleeping lightly beside her, and her heart filled with something heavy yet beautiful. But then her breath caught. Her skin glowed faintly in places, where it never had before. Her heartbeat felt strong, louder. A strange warmth pulsed inside her stomach. Fear rushed into her chest. She woke Evan quickly, telling him something was wrong. Evan checked her carefully, confusion growing in his eyes. Then, in the quiet morning air, Lirea felt a pulse inside her. A small, soft movement that could not be possible. Her people could not have children. Yet something inside her had changed, and she had no idea whether to feel hope or fear. Lirea sat frozen, her hand pressed against her stomach as the strange warmth continued to pulse inside her. She had lived her entire life believing motherhood was impossible. Every Tylari child of the last century had been born through artificial methods, and even those attempts had failed long ago. Natural birth had vanished from her people. Their bodies simply couldn't create life anymore, but something inside her moved again. Soft but real. Evan held her shoulders carefully, worry filling his eyes. He asked her to breathe, to stay calm, but Lirea couldn't think. The truth she had been raised on Tylari, cannot carry children, broke apart in her mind. She tried to stand but felt her legs weaken. The forest around them spun. Evan caught her quickly, holding her against his chest. She whispered that something was wrong with her, but Evan shook his head. He told her that something this gentle, this warm, could not be wrong. Lirea stared at him, trying to steady her breath. She wasn't sure if she believed him, but his voice calmed the fear just enough. They needed help. Lirea guided him toward an old research outpost, hidden deep inside the forest. It was used long ago for biological studies, and Lirea hoped anyone might still be there. Evan carried her most of the way, moving quickly but carefully. Lirea clung to him, afraid to close her eyes, afraid of what she might feel next. By afternoon, they reached the outpost. It was cracked and damaged, but still standing. Inside, lights flickered weakly, powered by an old backup generator. Lirea called out, and an elderly Tylari healer named Siren emerged from the shadows. She gasped when she saw Evan, but focused quickly when Lirea struggled to stand. The healer examined her in silence, her delicate hands glowing with diagnostic tools. Lirea watched her face anxiously. Siren's expression slowly shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to something Lirea had never seen in any Tylari: healer hope. Siren whispered that Lirea's body was changing in ways their people thought lost forever. She said Lirea carried a spark of life inside her. A life that wasn't fully Tylari, but wasn't fully human either. Lirea felt her breath stop. She looked at Evan, who stared at Siren with shock and wonder mixed on his face. Lirea's heart pounded. She wasn't supposed to feel this. She wasn't supposed to have this. And yet, the warmth inside her pulsed again, as if answering her fear with a quiet promise. Siren told them the truth. Lirea's small body wasn't built to carry such a pregnancy. She would grow weaker. The child would grow faster. And in the end, Lirea might not survive unless they found a safe way to support her. Evan's jaw tightened. He told Siren that he would do anything to protect both Lirea and the child. Before anything more could be said, the walls shook. The Kraith had found the outpost. Alarms screamed through the empty building. Lirea's heart jumped in her chest. Evan grabbed his weapon and positioned himself between her and the entrance. The door blasted open with a burst of smoke, and several Kraith soldiers stormed inside. Lirea screamed for Evan to run, but he refused to move. He fired at the attackers, pushing them back step by step, protecting her with every breath he took. Siren pulled Lirea toward a hidden room, but Lirea refused to leave. She could not take her eyes off Evan. He fought with a strength she had never imagined, his body moving like a shield of iron and fire. Every time a Kraith fired, he stood in front of her, taking the risk without hesitation. Lirea watched him with a trembling heart. She wasn't afraid of the attackers. She was afraid of losing him. The Kraith retreated for a moment, regrouping outside. Evan ran to Lirea, breathing hard, his armor dented and burned. He told her they needed to escape to a deeper chamber underground. Lirea nodded, trying to focus, but her body felt weaker with every minute. Siren supported her as they moved through dark hallways. Underground, they found a reinforced chamber where Siren connected Lirea to old medical systems. Lirea felt cold metal against her skin, then a warm flow through her body, meant to keep her stable. Evan knelt beside her, holding her small hand gently between his stronger ones. Lirea looked at him, fear and love mixing inside her in a way she couldn't describe. The Kraith began to break through the lower levels. Evan stood again, ready to fight. Lirea whispered for him to stay. She told him she didn't want to face anything alone. Evan leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, telling her that he would always come back. Always. He turned just as the doors exploded inward. The battle echoing through the chamber was brutal. Evan fought like someone who refused to die, someone who had a reason far greater than survival. Lirea watched him with tears running down her cheeks. Every blast shook the ground. Every hit made her heart pound in pain. Then something inside her shifted sharply. Her body reacted to the danger. Her hands glowed with strange energy she had never seen before. Her people had weak physical strength, but their communication abilities were powerful. Lirea suddenly understood something. The Kraith were using a linked network to coordinate their attack. If she could disrupt it, even for a moment, Evan could survive. She pushed herself up, ignoring the pain. She placed her hands on the control panel and reached out with her mind into the signal web around them. The energy inside her child amplified her power. Lirea felt the network like threads stretching across the land. She pulled hard, sending a burst of interference strong enough to break the Kraith connection. Above her, the attackers froze in confusion. Evan seized the moment. He pushed through the chaos, taking down the last of the soldiers with fierce determination. The chamber fell silent except for Lirea's heavy breathing. Evan ran to her, lifting her gently. She was pale, trembling, but alive. He held her tightly, whispering that she had saved them both. Lirea felt warmth inside her again, the small, new life that had changed everything. Days later, humans and Tylari formed an alliance. The Kraith fled the system, their network broken by Lirea's interference. Lirea's condition grew more fragile, but with help from both species, she carried her pregnancy to the final moment. When her child was born, the room filled with soft golden light. Lirea wept the moment she saw the tiny hybrid life, small like her, strong like Evan, glowing with a future neither species had believed possible. Evan held the child with shaking hands, tears in his eyes. Lirea leaned against him, exhausted but filled with a warm joy she never imagined she would feel. She whispered that she once thought motherhood was impossible, but one night with a human had changed her life, her future, and her entire world forever.